ever wondered what apps would look like if they were horror? Well, I have before, but I found even more. What will they look like? Let's find out.
Let's take these Kids app icons and make them
have
horror themed,
multiple.
starting with the YouTube Kids app.
No!
We're gonna start off.
YouTube
might
Kids
keep
should
you
be
awake
happy.
Tonight, so let's get started. First,
Okay,
I
let's
masked
do
out
it.
the YouTube Kids logo and changed the background to white, so it still feels friendly.
That's
for about half a
happy,
second.
yeah.
Then I added a zombie arm that's literally pressing
It's
the play
grabbing
button
the
because
button.
if we need something to start a video, it might as well be that. I gave the logo a drop
Fair.
shadow to lift it off the background.
That
and
is
then
very
I added a contact
horrific.
ambient shadow to the arm so it actually feels like it belongs
like a
in the scene.
zombie.
And once everything felt grounded, I painted some
Icky.
blood coming out of the logo itself and added a little more onto the arm.
On the arm. The arm made it extra creepy. Would you click on that icon? I don't think I would.
The next tab is Maze for Kids, and in the
Maze for
original
Kids.
icon, there's a rat trying to find
Mouse
cheese.
wants the
So
cheese.
I
No, pause. I'm gonna guess what this guy's gonna do. I feel like he's going to have the mouse in a trap. And the trap has a cheese in it.
flipped the
You know what I
idea.
mean?
Instead of cheese, I added a blood trail running through the maze.
Oh,
At
or
the
that.
end of that trail, I placed garbage bags against the wall,
Trash?
and yes, there are body parts inside.
Oh,
to push
no.
the story a little further,
there
I
like a
added a
foot in
lake
there?
next to the bags as if whoever did this is about to get rid of the evidence.
Oh,
This kind of makes
no.
me feel like I'm watching Dexter. After
I was
cleaning
gonna
up
say
the
that
lake with the
too.
cone stamp
It's a
tool,
really good
I placed
show.
the figure in the throwing pose and added one more garbage bag above him right before
But
it
it
goes
was
into the
a
water.
mouse
So, yeah.
before.
And this one already had a face, so obviously I had to make it
Cute.
evil. First, I used
Evil.
to fill to remove the mouth. Then I turned the truck completely black. I removed the original eyebrows and drew an angrier. Jesus.
feel that.
Now the front of the truck was perfect for the teeth.
Wait,
so
he's
I
kind
made
of
a
a vibe.
selection, filled it with black, and clipped triangle shapes into it to create a full
Pause. I'm guessing he's going to, well, he's already doing the pointy teeth, but instead of water, I think it's going to be blood at the top.
set of teeth. Then I matched the shadows from the eyes so everything stayed consistent and turned
Love
the
it.
water splashes red because
Knew it.
now it's blood.
I
After
knew
that,
it.
I added dripping blood on the back of the
Ooh,
truck, warped it into
creepy.
perspective, and pulled
What's
an
in
arm
the
out of
back?
the mouth using puppet warp. Seriously, is
somebody
this sometimes getting out of control, or am I the only one who feels this way? Let me know
No,
in
it's
the
supposed to
comments.
look
Once the
horror,
arm
so
was
you're
in
doing
place,
great.
I added shadows where it touches the truck, and shadows on
looks
the arm
kinda
itself so it
realistic.
actually feels wrapped around the metal. Then came more
Ah.
blood, highlights, depth.
I
and
need the
darker splashes
backstory
in the
here.
back because it was way too bright for a horror icon. I separated the truck from the background and placed it on a red to black radial
actually
gradient to
looks
finish it off. And
pretty
yeah,
cool.
this thing definitely
I shouldn't say that. I'm just saying he did a good job at what he was supposed to do,
people.
okay?
The idea was to turn the dentist icon
He got
into something that
icky
feels
teeth.
dead and he just casually needs to see a dentist for his teeth. I started
Excuse
with
me?
basic shapes for the mouth and teeth and
Wait, pause. Originally, this was a puppy. That's not a human child,
He
right?
wants to turn the dentist icon into something that feels dead
puppy.
and he just casually needs to see a dentist for his teeth. I started
this
with
looks
basic
like a
shapes for the mouth
person.
and teeth and clipped everything properly before touching any color.
need to
Then I
see a
added shadows
dentist.
between the teeth to create separation, shadows inside the mouth for depth, and shadows on the teeth themselves.
rotten
Once that was
teeth?
done, I turned the teeth yellow because, well, we all know
Yeah.
this is purely out of jealousy. Then I added
Pause. Ew, that's a horrible place to pause. If I was going to do this app, I would give them vampire fangs and then some like teeth that were rotting on the side. But I might make it look like a vampire going, ah, because that would give horror.
the eyes and spend an unreasonable amount of time adding
Is it a
shadows across the
spider?
entire icon because
What kinda
I always
eyes are
have to
that?
feel so extra. This is where most of the work went, so instead of watching me suffer, this part turns into a quick shadow montage.
Wait, is it a vampire? Spider. Pumpkin. Skull. Something with two eyes on both sides.
Finally,
Oh,
after that, I
that was
added
so
blood
much
and brought
work.
back the drill from the original icon so it
Of
still
course.
reads as a dentist app. And
Change the
honestly,
color
this
though,
one
right?
came
Yeah.
together pretty well.
That is really scary.
Baby games, piano, and baby
It's
phone.
cute.
This was always meant to
Don't
be
make
the
it
worst one.
horror.
I started with a
Really?
sketch. find the
Can we just talk about how talented this man is? He just like sketched this. So instead of this cute little happy dog, what kind of animal is this? A lion? I don't know. Whatever that
Piano and
is.
baby phone. This
It is
was
now
always meant to be the worst one. I started
a
with a
goblin.
sketch, refined the proportions, and then I built the character from scratch using shapes. The color palette stayed simple, black and red. Once all the shapes were in place,
Oh, the
I
mouth
started
is
adding shadows to
creepy.
everything. Head,
Is there gonna
body,
be teeth?
arms, legs.
It looks like a bat.
everything. Again. Then I started working on the mouth.
Ooh, the
I began with
tongue.
the tongue and added the teeth.
Ick.
Build out the gums and finish it off with saliva stretching between everything. After that, I added the eyes and the nostrils and gave the arms metal braces with shadows underneath so
Kinda
they
looks
actually
like-
feel embedded into the character.
I
Now
don't
for the
know.
fun part. I masked out the baby phone screen and placed the
He's gonna be
demon coming
popping
out of it. Then
it?
I added orange
Ooh.
highlights as if the light is coming from inside the device.
He
Then
looks like he's
I
coming
walked
from the
arm
bad
into
place,
keypad,
if you know
masked
what I
the phone
mean.
cleanly and desaturated it to black and white. After, I added
I am
shadows
never
wherever the
clicking
demon
this
touches
app.
the edges. To keep some contrast, I painted the color back into one of the
Ooh,
buttons and
that
added
looks
glow to
nice.
the eyes. Then came blood, a bloom effect, and finally a camera raw filter to bring it all together.
That looked so
Observe.
legit. I'm friends with CHC. I feel like you should put his logo next to this one. It kind of looks similar, except Zach's is turquoise, so it's not as scary.
Bring it all. X icon. I started with the scoop rectangle in the
Or
logo
Twitter.
and
Do
immediately
we-
saw a
do
knife,
we call
so
it
I
X?
turned it into one. The bottom
Smart.
section became a darker gray, basically the handle. For the other part
Right.
of the X, I had a better idea. What if this
What?
wasn't part of the logo anymore,
was an
but
arrow.
a finger? So I masked out a finger, cut both ends so it was
Ah!
severed, and then
Wait, that's
desaturated
so
it.
scary.
Yes, it's a long finger. I
That's
know.
a good
it had
idea.
to fit the icon. Then I added
blood.
to the knife and
Of
blood
course,
to the
I knew
finger,
it was
and
coming.
that's the X icon.
I will say this looks a little messy. There's a lot to look out. Again, such a talented person who did this, but what would you do? I feel like I might do a bow and arrow, but I've gone there before. What else could you do? I don't know. This was
Still
really creative.
recognizable, just not something you would want to click anymore.
No.
Next up is the Notes
Notes
app. The first thing I did was
What would you do with this Notes app? Let's think about it
Next.
together. Ooh, okay. You have hands coming over the top part here, gripping onto the paper, and it says like help or something on the note. That'd be creepy,
up is
right?
the Notes app. The first thing I did was recreate the top of the note so I could turn it black. Inside the note, I wrote the
end.
end is near, which already feels like a bad sign.
It
But someone
needed
had
some
to write
scary
that, So I
text.
built a pen from scratch using basic shapes, a metal
gonna
texture,
have
a pointed
red
tip,
on it
and
too?
shadows so it actually feels real. Then I added blood spatters on the note and on
Ooh,
the pen itself.
creepy.
At that point, it still felt slightly off, so I took the metal tip from a real pen and blended it into my custom one using shadows and
that does look
highlights
better.
until it actually belonged
This
there.
is why
a few
he's
more blood
professional.
details later, and the Notes app was done.
That one was good.
Next up, the WhatsApp icon. I rebuilt the logo in high quality so I had full control over
That already
every part
looks
of
better,
it.
I won't
Pure
lie.
white felt way too innocent, so I pushed it towards a dirty yellow instead. Then I added a
Ew.
gritty texture to make it feel old and neglected.
And he
The phone
broke
inside
it.
The logo I split into two parts so it looked
broken
damaged.
phone.
After that, I started adding shadows everywhere
is
because
creepy. It looks
without
like a
depth,
skull or
none of this
something.
works. The green background got darker and moodier with shadows cast from the logo itself. I warped the
Okay.
textures so they followed the round shape of the icon, and underneath the phone
It almost looks like a broken bone. Does anybody else see that? I know it's a phone, but it kind of looks like a leg bone or something that's
I
broken.
added a black splatter texture. And then came the long part. You know that part you spend so long on you just want to headbutt your monitor? Yes,
Yeah,
that
no.
one. I rough up the edges, add cracks, and remove that clean,
You have
perfect
to.
look.
Make it look
Once
super
that was
old
done, I added
and
blood.
creepy.
First on the logo itself,
Of
then
course.
dripping from the phone down on the icon, and then I added shadows and highlights to the
was
blood.
already
And I
looking good
also
without
thought
the
it was a
blood,
cool
but
idea to add
pulled it
bloody
together.
fingerprints to the phone. And finally, spider webs because the icon looks like it hasn't been used in a very long time.
It wouldn't be used in a long time if it was me, because I barely use WhatsApp.
Next up is Twitch.
Ooh, okay. What should we do with Twitch? Let me know in the comments what you're thinking. I think we elongate the app so it looks like a Casper ghost, and then you do a creepy upside down smile. But it kind of already looks like a ghost, right?
Or anything, I made sure I had all the shapes in place. I added
Wait,
texture
it looks
to
like
every
a
single
ghast
shape
from
separately,
Minecraft.
And then I started building that with shadows,
Okay, we
front
had
lighting,
similar
and hard
ideas.
edge highlights. For
Right?
the eyes, I painted them from scratch. They had a
Ooh,
red base,
that's actually pretty
desaturated
cool.
orange, a white highlights, and then a red glow to
This
make them
is
stand
similar
out.
to a Minecraft
After that,
ghast, I'm
I
telling
damaged
you.
the eyes by erasing parts of them so the texture underneath shows through.
Kinda like a skull?
Obviously, this wouldn't be horror if there wasn't blood dripping down from the
Obviously.
eyes. Then I started working
The
on the tongue
eyes-
and gave it more depth by adding shadows and
tongue
rough
needs
edges
some
so
work.
it doesn't look clean. Then
It's like
added
a
more grunge, more
situation.
blood, and hey, we made sure no one ever wants to stream on that platform.
That honestly does kind of look like a gash. Like this kind of looks like a cut instead of a tongue. But what was he saying?
More blood, and hey, we made sure no one ever wants to stream on that platform again.
He's anti-Twitch.
Now for the last one, the Discord icon. This
Okay, we've gone over Discord before, but this is a new idea. It could look like a controller, but what if you added bloody teeth right here? And then horns up here. Could you see it?
Logo has always felt like half a face to me, so I
See?
finished it. I cut the
pretty
icon
much
out
what
and
I was
added
saying.
that with shadows. Then I
This
designed
is just
4
better.
teeth. Not even
Look!
teeth, something slightly wrong.
What did I
built
just say?
gums around them and placed the teeth underneath. Then added shadows to both so they feel embedded. After that, I damaged the
gross.
teeth because perfect teeth are unsettling, but broken ones are
Yes,
worse.
they
So
are.
duplicated the
What's he
gums
been
and teeth to
chomping on,
create a
huh?
bottom jaw and reshaped it until it actually felt
Oh, this
somewhat
looks like an actual
natural.
skull.
Then came the wrinkles, and I always find this
The
satisfying
wrinkles.
to do, so let's turn this into a quick shadow montage.
Are wrinkles horrifying? Is that what he's saying? That looks like a skull.
Alright, I kept the eyes the same as the actual logo because I wanted the face to look like he locked his eyes onto a target. I added a veiny skin texture and blended it in manually at a very low opacity. Then I did the same thing for the teeth, and after, I added a human skull, extracted the
looks
jaw
just
from
like a
it, and
skull.
painted in the
Wait,
shadows and
that's so
highlights to make it
smart.
cohesive with the rest. I tried
This guy's
adding
brilliant.
a hand
Ew!
eyeball, but I immediately killed that idea. It took way too much
It
of
was
the
too
icon
scary.
concept that would be too distracting anyways.
Fair.
Then I added blood, warped it into place, refined it, and pushed it into the teeth. A final camera raw filter to boost contrast and add a tiny bit of those sick yellow
What I'm most impressed by with this logo is even though he's added so many new elements, I still can tell that it's Discord.
and that was it. Kidjo Games app. First, I dragged
games
in the
app for
original
kids.
icon and started rebuilding all the shapes from scratch.
I think we have to
recreated
get rid
main
of the
controller
Santa
shape,
hat.
then exaggerated the mouth to give it a bigger and more unsettling
There's
smile.
gonna be creepy
After that,
teeth.
I recreated the buttons on the right
like
side
the
and gave them
wink.
drop shadows so they actually felt like physical buttons instead of flat shapes. Same
Oh, he's
thing on the left
tan?
side. Physical right side smile. Rated the mouth to give it a bigger and more unsettling
gonna be
smile.
teeth.
After
We
that,
already
I
know.
recreated the buttons on the right side and gave them drop shadows so they actually felt like physical
depth
buttons
is
instead
there.
of flat shapes. Same
looking
thing on the left
good.
side.
Wait, he could make this one red like the medical symbol, if you know what I'm talking about, like the emergency symbol. I used to be an ER nurse in real life, and so I'm thinking, what if we made this like a hospital type scary thing?
We built the directional buttons and added shadows there too. Then I started working on the eyes. Once the eyes were in place, I added the
That
cable
looks like a
attached to the controller
jack-o'-lantern.
and gave that shadows and highlights so it
He
didn't
kinda
feel
looks like a
that flat.
pumpkin.
After that, I went over the entire controller
Could you
with
see
shadows
that?
and highlights,
Make
which
'em
is where
orange.
it really started to come alive. I dropped in glowing red
Oh,
eyes
that
inside
adds a
the sockets
lot.
to keep it playful but slightly unsettling. I added shadows to the buttons and worked on the mouth.
Of course, he got rid
I
of the
first thought
hat.
it was cool to keep the teeth on the outside of the mouth, but
I like
it
the
didn't
teeth.
go as planned. It just looked
Oh.
better inside. Who would have thought? Once that was done, I
I
added
thought it looked
texture to
great.
the controller to make it feel dirty and used instead of clean and plastic.
Fair.
Then I added some light blood details.
We
and
always
finished
have to
everything
add in
with
the
a
blood.
gradient background and a camera raw filter. And
If
that
we
is
want it to
Kidjo
look like
Games
horror,
turned
that
into
makes
horror.
sense. What kid would ever click on that?
Next up is Mega World. The original
Oh.
icon is
Oh,
very
this is
friendly, so
cute.
the first thing I did was
This has so much detail, and I was gonna pause and tell you guys what I would do with this, but I'm really distracted by the eyes he's already adding. I would probably... I just thought of a really creepy idea. Remember, this is horror apps. That's why I'm being scary here. I would do like a head on a plate, because this is like a circular plate looking thing with like a cute town. We're trying to make this scary.
completely replace the eyes and the smile with my own shapes, sharper and more aggressive, and way
Is it gonna
less
be
friendly
upside down
because,
smile?
according to my channel, I have lost touch with humanity. Anyways, then I added glowing eyes
not
again,
true.
then placed teeth inside the mouth and started shaping the face using shadows
Ooh, the
first,
hair color's
highlights
scary.
second. After that, I moved on to the UFO. I removed the original
That was
face
a-
inside it and
I didn't know it
rebuilt
was
the
a
UFO
UFO.
from scratch using shapes. I added a rough metal texture,
Oh,
warped it
that
into
looks
place to give it
good.
depth, and then layered highlights on top of it so it didn't
Put a
feel
Martian
flat.
on it.
Once the face was done, I added a texture to it.
Wait,
A
it's the man
dirt-like
in the
texture
moon.
to make it feel grimy and worn. Then I traced the lightning-shaped detail from
The
the,
lightning
original
looks
icon
cool.
and turned it into a scar, almost like torn skin. After that, I
Ick.
worked on the ear, the neck, and the hair. Let's turn
There he
this
goes
into a
with the
quick
depth.
montage.
This is really where it gets pulled all together. I can respect it. I do think a little
Welcome
alien
back.
would
Now
go
I
far.
added the red hoodie, warped it into
Oh.
place, and then started working on the background. I added red smoke, light rays coming from the UFO.
The
and
light
blended
ray was a
everything
great
together so it
idea.
felt atmospheric instead of flat. To make the UFO feel more alive, I added an eye inside it. Built
Yes.
the shape, added
Oh.
shadows, and gave
Not
it a glowing
alien, but
laser-like
close enough.
center. Because honestly, without that, it just looked like a floating metal hat. Then I added subtle blood to the eyes, finished everything with a camera raw filter, and that was
This is my
Mika
favorite
World.
so far. That is scary.
I started by darkening the outside of the
It's a
icon, and then I added an
cyclops.
eye I pulled in and color corrected
Realistic
to a sickly
eye makes
yellow
it scarier.
tone. I boosted contrast, added shadows under the eye, and then started
Reflection.
shaping the area around it with highlights so it actually felt embedded into the face.
Ew.
After that, I
And the
added a dirt
veins in the
texture to
eye.
make everything less clean, adjusted the color balance, and desaturated the eye so it didn't feel too colorful. I turned the teeth yellow, added
you gonna make 'em
shadows to them,
pointy?
and then reshaped the face by adding shadows between the eyes and mouth to break up that square look. Then I added the tongue, which was absolutely disgusting.
That's
I walked
so
it into
gross.
place, added shallows,
That is a
shallows, color corrected it,
horrifying-
and then absolutely disgusting. I warped it into place.
That really
added
is a
shallows,
horrifying
shallows, color corrected it, and then started adding blood around the mouth and inside it. I erased parts of the blood so it didn't look overdone. Added circular blood
That's-
around
yeah.
the eye and placed blood on the upper teeth so it actually made sense.
What
After
did that
a final
Cyclops
camera raw
eat?
filter, this one stopped feeling like a kid's icon entirely.
Yeah, definitely.
Look out below! BU this season with my BU anime collection. Build your bundle with 3 items for 10% off or 5 items for 15% off. Get free shipping for any orders over $75. Only on Brainmerch.com. Look out below!
Big. So I started by recreating the
Roblox.
Roblox logo from I added a metal texture,
you're
layered
making
shadows,
metal.
and highlights to make it feel heavy and industrial. Then I built the side of the logo to give it a full 3D
depth.
look.
That looks
Darkened the
good.
metal and added more highlights.
Okay, where are we going with this? I'm trying to think. Roblox as a horror app. Like, we putting an eyeball in there, but no, it's metal. What's he
wouldn't
gonna
blend
do?
into the background. I did the same for the inner cutout, and then I started building the
The depth is
environment.
there, it's
I added
better.
the floor, color corrected it,
The moon.
and repainted the shadows so they matched the blue tone scene. I added smoke for atmosphere
Now
and
he's
pushed the
gonna add
highlights
blood,
on the outside
right?
out. Then I color
He's
corrected
got
the
to.
entire logo so it actually matched the scene. And I mean,
Wait, that's
it
just
felt like
aesthetic.
finally getting rid of that buzzing fly that's been bugging you for days. Inside the cutout, I placed an apocalyptic world. I removed the
Oh,
original
cool
character.
idea.
I replaced it with a custom Roblox character. Color
Wait, that's
corrected
actually
him
a
and blurred
vibe.
the background so the focus stayed on the icon. I added orange bloom coming from the inside of the cube to contrast the blue exterior. At this point, I wanted it to feel dangerous because
Yeah,
it
we
didn't
need more
really
danger.
feel horror yet. So
Agreed.
I added cracked metal, burnt edges,
Ooh.
and vein-like details around the opening. This wouldn't be a Marcus video if I didn't forget to turn on the recording at least once. So
Oh,
here you
no.
go, nasty, horrific.
Dang.
I finished it by pushing highlights from the orange world onto the metal edges and wrapped everything up with a camera raw filter. And that was Roblox, but horror.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna give this extra points because it's so creative. My mind would never have been, oh, I'm gonna put a post-apocalyptic world inside the Roblox app. That's so creative.
First,
Balloon
I'll erase
pop.
the original balloon
Wait,
and bring
it's
in a more
already
realistic
scary.
one. Use
It's
the
like
purple warp
it,
tool to bend
the
the string
clown.
so it fits the actual shape of the
has a
original
red
icon.
balloon.
Following that, I need a hand that looks like it's actually holding the string. So I'll bring in an image of
The
two fingers
glove.
pressing together. I'll add a dark background and put a concrete texture on it before
Now,
adding
see,
some
okay, it's called balloon pop. So are we still gonna put a face on the balloon and make him be like, ah? That was a really unnecessarily creepy noise. I'm so
to
sorry.
the fingers, and finally I'll add a camera raw filter to give it that grainy look.
Oh,
Anyways,
okay.
here's the balloon pop.
It didn't
but
make it
horror.
pop. It could have been scarier. This is creepy, but not as creepy as it could have been.
Kitlo land, so I'll
Oh, it's
find a
just
similar
an
form
A.
online and recreate the main A shape.
How are we gonna
I'll give
make
it a
this
stroke.
scary?
Then I separate it into its own layer so I can
How do
easily
we
paint
make
the
the
blood
letter A
underneath it.
scary?
But instead of a regular hand, let's give it a skeleton
Okay.
hand.
And
Then
it's
I'll
supposed to
enhance the
look like
shadows on the bone
blood?
to give it more depth.
Sketching
Next,
the
I'll make
letter?
the blood on the sides look more imperfect, like
Makes
it's actually
sense.
dripping down the icon. I'll add some shadows around the tip of the finger so it looks
Ew.
like it's actually poking into the blood. Finally, I'll
Gross.
swap the
Rotten
happy apple
apple.
for a rotten one and fix the highlights.
You
So,
could have done like the poison apple from Snow White too. That could have been fun.
here's the horror version of Kitlo
Or a bit
Land.
too much. I ain't clicking on that.
For Brawl Stars, I'll start by creating the main shapes for the head, eyes, and eyebrows.
skeleton's
I'll
already
give
pretty
every
scary.
layer a
How do we
drop
make it
shadow
even
to make it look
scarier?
3D instead of flat.
He's
Next,
angry.
I'll start cutting away parts of the mouth to make it look more gritty and less clean.
Or like he has teeth.
I'll put a texture
Kind of.
over the whole face and add some
Ooh, he's
cracks into
dirty.
the skull. But I'll erase parts of him so it's not
You
too
could put a
distracting.
Band-Aid on his
Following
head.
that, I'll do the same
That's
for the
not
outer
scary.
bevel and add some highlights to the face. And then I'll add a camera raw filter to bring the colors together.
That
and
looks
here's
really
the horror
good.
version of Brawl Stars.
Brawl Stars was already kind of scary, but he made it scarier.
Next is learning games for toddlers. So
Oh, it's a
I'll find
little rubber ducky. How do we make the rubber ducky scary? This kind of makes me sad. Again, I'm trying to make it horror themed. So what do? Do we turn the duck into a crow? Because I feel like crows and ravens are in scary movies. So like a creepy bird, red glowing eyes, and he's floating in like something icky.
bathtub that looks like the original but made of old metal. I'll add some
Okay,
water
yeah.
and bring in a duck that looks a little more sinister than the
Oh,
original
it's still a duck.
one. I'll add a bathroom tile background.
still think
but
a
I'll swap
raven
it
would
out
be
later
creepier.
for one with more cohesive lighting so it fits the scene better. Next,
The
I'll add
duck's
shadows
just
and highlights to the
peeking
duck
through the
and
water.
make the water a lot darker. I'll make a silhouette
You
of the
need to make his
bathtub and
eyes
use
glow.
Gaussian blur to create a shadow on the floor. Finally, I'll make the duck's eyes
See?
look like they're glowing
We're on the
before
same
finishing
page.
with a camera raw filter. We just did what the makers of Donald Duck couldn't do, so here's learning games for toddlers, but sinister.
Ooh, that one's really scary.
Now, for kids' coloring pages, I'll start by dropping in an image of a heart. On
What?
mastering
We went from a
pages,
strawberry
I'll start
to a
dropping
heart.
in an image
It's
of
almost the exact same shape. That was such a good idea. I never would have
heart.
thought of
I
it.
mask out 5 fingers and place them in the same spot as the markers
Why?
in the original image. You
Oh.
see where this is going? Wink.
Is it grabbing the
Following that,
heart?
I'll bring in a knife and make it look like it's going into the heart by darkening the inside
Are we
area.
getting
I'll put a metal
scarier as
table
the video
underneath
goes
and
on?
refine the mask on the fingers to make them look more realistic. The light source comes from the top, so I shaded it accordingly.
fingers are
Then
really
I
spread out.
desaturate everything so it looks less alive and more gross. Next,
Ew.
I'll add some shadows under the knife and put some blood under the heart, on the fingers, and on the knife.
Heck.
So here's coloring pages, just not with markers
Oh, that's so scary. The only way to calm me down is if you hit that subscribe button, okay? Please do it for the both of us.
and stumble guys.
Stumble, guys, he's so cute. Wait, what if he's missing his hand here? There's a bone poking out, and then he looks more like a skeleton. Just a thought.
First, I'll recreate the main shapes for the face, shirt, and hands. I'll give him some evil eyes and an evil
Of
mouth
course.
before shading every layer
Jack-o'-lantern
to look 3D.
vibes.
Then I'll bring in a cap and some jeans and shade them so they match the
kinda
lighting
Halloween
of the rest
colored.
of the scene. Next, I'll put a texture on the shirt and paint
Ooh,
in some shadows
that
for
looks
folds in the
nice.
fabric. But he looks too clean, so I'll start erasing
does.
parts of the shirt to make it look torn and like he has done some pretty
Some
bad
weird
stuff.
stains.
Following that, I'll add dirt textures over his face and hands before adding a bunch of blood around the scene. I'll add
Of
some final
course.
highlights and put a dark night sky in the background. So here's Stumble Guys, but horror.
The depth of this is crazy. It not only looks horror, but it looks realistic.
Khan Academy. I began by building a
Oh, he's so cute. Okay, why do we have all these adorable icons we're making horror? I guess that makes it more interesting. You can just make a scary grizzly bear, blood on his teeth, and glowing red
completely
eyes.
new scene. So I started with a blue background and added a subtle floor underneath so the eye can actually
Oh, it's like
have
a
something
floating
to sit
head?
on. Once that was in place, I traced
That's
the face
creepy.
shape from the original icon and clipped the fabric texture inside it to instantly move it away from that clean
Oh.
2D-ish look. From there, I shaded everything
Oh, he's
as
still
if the light
blue.
was coming from the left. I started
Fun.
with the shadows, then I gave it highlights. and
We
that
have to make the
already made it
hat
a lot
scarier.
better. Then I added a stitch mouth. Not too
Ooh,
extreme, just
creepy.
enough to make it feel wrong.
Yeah,
For the
it-
eyes,
definitely.
I used buttons, but warped them into perspective so
why
that
is it
matched the
actually
curvature
kind
of the
of
face
cute?
instead of floating on top of it. After some extra shading, I softened the edges, added loose hairs to break the silhouette, and
Ick.
rebuilt the beanie from scratch with its own highlights and texture. At this
He's so
point,
talented.
it still felt a little too cute.
It
so
is
I added
cute.
dirt, screws embedded into the face,
Oh.
and a subtle reflection on the floor. As if a reflection on the floor makes it less cute. Anyways, then I finished it with a
it's
camera raw
creepier.
filter and this is
nose
Khan
threw it
Academy,
off.
but horror.
The nose threw it off. I will say this looks a lot like a Fuggler. If you've ever seen, here's the toy, if we can put it on the screen. They're gross, but people buy them. It kind of looks similar, except this guy don't got teeth. He's still kind of cute.
Duolingo ABC. I
There's
started
a
by
child
rebuilding the
version of
icon using
Duolingo.
3
Kids are so smart. Like, I am an adult and I just know one language. I'm still trying to learn. But like, babies are out here learning multiple
shapes, the
languages.
left wing, the right wing,
Jealous.
and the face. I experimented with realism first, but that didn't
scary
really
owl?
work. It felt disconnected from the original style.
Agreed.
So instead, I rebuilt the beak from scratch, making the upper part
scary
sharper
beak?
and more aggressive while keeping
Ooh.
the original proportions.
It's
That's
like,
when I had the
learn
idea
your
to open the
languages.
face. Then I brought in loose flash textures and an owl skull.
Ah!
Then warped everything into place so it looked like the face was torn
Okay,
open
nobody's
instead of
clicking on
laid
this app
top.
anymore.
I cut away parts of the original face so the skull and flesh sat behind it, not in front. Only the upper part of the skull remained visible.
This is the
aligned with
scariest
beak,
one
and I
so
pushed
far,
highlights on the bone
right?
to make it pop to the opening. Finish it off with blood, change
Ah!
the ABC lettering to a horror font, and that was basically it. Duolingo ABC, but terrifying.
Now I'm terrified of the alphabet.
And now we move on to the designs that actually take time. Now the next one is PBS Kids.
I grew up watching so many PBS shows. Put in the comments if you have a favorite PBS show. Mine was Zaboomafoo. It was amazing.
Now for PBS
Oh
Kids,
my!
I started with a sketch. I rebuilt the entire...
I was talking about happy things, looking at this like happy little character here. Look,
Actually,
he's all
TikTok.
happy, and
Now,
then
the
all of a
next one
sudden,
is- For
bang.
PBS Kids, I started with a sketch. I rebuilt the entire...
This guy sketched that?
Rebuilt the entire character as a zombie.
so
Face
impressed.
first, then the mouth, nose, ears, shirt, and teeth.
Why are we cutting
each
those out?
tooth on its own layer.
They're different
and each
layers.
tooth
Oh.
with a different shape. Lucky me. Now, most
It's
of the
a
next
lot
stage
of
was
work.
shading, so let's turn this into a shading montage.
So he looks like a zombie, and like all the veins and stuff are really creepy. Oh my gosh. But you can still tell it's the PBS kid for some reason. I don't understand how he did that. Magic. Literal magic.
Alright, after the base was done, I added a zombie skin texture and rebuilt the eyes inside the
Oh,
sockets
the
with
eyes
proper
are
shadows behind
so
them.
scary.
The nose was completely reworked. The neck got muscle shading and the mouth received deeper shadows so the teeth felt like they were pushing through skin. Then I
Ick.
color corrected the hair, gave it its own shadow, and lifted off the face. The shirt
What color
came
is this
from
shirt?
a dirty
Oh, okay.
fabric texture, but I painted in extra wrinkles so it felt worn and used. Finally,
That
I
added a
rebuilt
lot.
the PBS Kids logo to match the original layout.
Yeah, you have to
added
still
some
have the
blood and
PBS.
locked everything together, and this was PBS Kids, but zombified.
I don't know about you guys, but I don't think PBS Kids, if it looked like this, would be showing Arthur. I'm just saying.
Even up next is Toka World. First thing
Toka
I removed was the
Boka!
mouth because I wanted full control over the expression.
Wait,
I
she looks
rebuilt
happy
it
now.
using duplicated teeth, made different sizes,
her a
and added
vampire.
shadows so they felt like they were actually inside her mouth. The eyes were rebuilt
Smart.
from scratch,
Oh.
and then I removed the globe from the hand to
Glowing
replace it with a
eyes.
skull. And honestly, also because these apps use the same design over and over again. Anyways, to make that possible, I masked
Smart.
the entire character into a separate
looks like an
layer so it
evil
could work behind it
scientist.
cleanly. My idea was to turn this into a witch-like character, so I
Oh,
added a
okay.
rope, rebuilt the face in full
Oh,
3D
the
shading,
robe is
and
cool.
reshaped the hair into thicker chunks with depth. Then I started working on the eyes, gave it a
Why is the
sickly
eye
yellow
so
tone,
scary?
and shading to make it cohesive with the rest of the face.
Ooh.
The skull was resized to fit
Does she
inside
get a
the hand
nose?
instead of resting on it. Then I
No?
masked and shaded so it felt physically held.
Look
It
at
ended
that
up having
hand.
the same color as the character with some of that texture with an
She needs to
emphasis
go to the
on
doctor.
some, subtly coming through so it didn't overpower the style. This is where the whole scene got color corrected and highlighted, which feels like a fabulous moment
The
for a small
glow.
montage.
Oh my gosh, this one is actually kind of cool. Like, I see how much artistry went into this one. You know what I mean? It's scary, but really a ton of detail. But she still doesn't have a nose. Does the original
Then I
one have a
added a
nose?
camera raw filter, and that was not Toka World because I forgot to add the nose, which I did afterwards. So here you
Caught
go,
it.
a nose.
Oh,
Well, the hole.
it's just a hole.
And that
Yeah,
was Toka World, but a horrific witch.
pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie.
All right, next up is
Minecraft.
And for
How are we gonna make Minecraft scary? This is a difficult one. So I'm gonna guess he's gonna do this as blood dripping, and then maybe the creeper is some other scary character
I
instead.
wanted the transition to feel smooth. So I placed the logo
Not
in the exact same
pixelated.
position as the original before changing anything else.
It is
That
red.
part matters more than people think. I can come up with a fancy reason, but it's mostly because my OCD brain likes to clear transition from one
believe you.
icon to another. So
Pop
now
off.
that we got that out of the way, I rebuilt the environment first, a dirty wall, and I erased the area above the logo to create the illusion of ground and depth. My idea was to make everything
the
above
original
the wall
coming
become
back
a
there? No,
cave-like
okay.
space, and below it became the ground. At this point, the
Creepy.
icon already stopped floating. It actually felt like it existed somewhere.
Yeah, it's
but
like got a
honestly,
lot of
somewhere
depth.
I already don't want to be. Then I added a custom shadow
Fair.
behind the logo with organic burnt shapes because, well, it
I knew
just
there'd
looks
be a
cool,
drip
okay?
somewhere.
Then came the skulls, one placed in the foreground and one closer to the wall.
Ooh.
Same skull, different treatment. Now, for the second one, I removed the jaw and painted grass into it by hand so it felt buried,
Ew.
like it had been there longer than the logo itself. Once the skulls were
Creepy.
in, I went back to the logo and recolored it, darkened the bottom edge, and fully integrated into the wall. Then I added horror Minecraft characters, and
I
man,
knew it.
this
I
made
knew
the
that was
edit
gonna
so
happen.
much better. The main one stood above the logo.
The
Backlit with
Enderman.
mist, so he separated from the background immediately.
that a scary
I kind of wanted
Enderman?
him to have that Game of Thrones Night
Oh.
King aura. The
see
second
that.
character was planted into the ground with grass painted around his feet, so he actually felt
I'm glad
connected
this
to
is
the
not in
environment.
Minecraft.
And finally, the spider, which I'm usually absolutely terrified of.
I don't
so
like
I'm glad
spiders.
it's just a Minecraft edit.
Me
I placed
too.
it on top of the logo,
Oh!
angled it forward like it was rushing towards the
That
camera.
pulled it
and then
all together together,
layer
though.
got contact shadow, and then the logo got shadows painted underneath. Now it wasn't just on the logo, it felt attached to it. After that, I unified everything with
wanna
lighting.
click it now.
Every character received consistent highlights, contact shadows, bloom, and atmospheric
had to have
haze,
taken
so
forever.
nothing felt out of place. Once the lighting matched, the whole scene finally locked together. After more dirt, blood, and a camera
Of course,
raw
the
film,
blood. I'm not gonna lie, I am so impressed by this. I expected the blood drip. I didn't expect the scary characters on top. Guys, are these supposed to be 2 scary Endermen? Let me know what you think.
I added depth of field to control the focus. The foreground skull
They
softened
almost look like
slightly,
ghosts.
the character in the back blurred out more, and the
Whoa.
cave faded into the background.
Why is
What
it
stayed
creepier
sharp was the
faded
logo,
back there?
The spider, and the central figure. And that was Minecraft, but horror.
He succeeded on that one. And please succeed by clicking on one of the next videos before they disappear. I hope this didn't scare you too bad.